Hello, welcome to the Global Psychic and Healer TV. Today we're going to receive a psychic medium, which have like different tool in a box. Welcome, Sonia Rosario Trujillo. Hello.
Hello.
Well, I'm very happy to receive you today. I did not have the chance yet to discuss with you, which is going to make the interview for me much more interesting.
Yes, we get to know each other live.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So I would like to know, to start from the beginning, to know how does it start for you, the mediumship? At which age? Which kind of experience did you have
Sure.
in the beginning?
All right, that I can do. So I like to tell people that I've always been this way. I remember being about. I have memories from when I'm about 2 or 3, and I've talked to other psychics, and a lot of other psychics will say they have very, very early memories compared to people who don't really seem to be psychic. So I feel like my earliest memories are from about 2 or even 3 years old in my grandmother's house. I was raised by my grandparents, and I had a wonderful life, a great family. And my grandmother, who I call her my mother, she was very, very spiritual, and she was also a natural medium. So it really wasn't unusual to me at all that there were spirits in our home pretty much all the time. And the spirits that I remember from age, 2 and 3 were in the basement. And there were about 3 spirits in the basement. One of them was not very pleasant, but that one mostly left me alone. And then there was my grandfather, my great grandfather, and I honestly didn't know that he had passed until I was probably 5 or 6. So I really didn't understand when I had this ongoing, relationship. I would play with him all the time. I didn't really understand at that point that he had passed. I thought he was a real person. And it was the most natural thing in the world for me. So I remember playing with my grandfather a lot. I was an only child until I was about 9 years old. So he was the main person in my life, the spirit of my great grandfather. But like I said, I didn't really know that that wasn't the same for everyone. And my mother was deeply psychic. She could tell you about your life. She could tell you about the things that were going to happen. So, as I got older, I became a teenager and got interested in boys, and I'd bring home some wonderful guy that I was just madly in love with. And right away she'd say, I know you like this guy, but that's definitely not the guy. I don't see it for you. And so her psychic abilities and the projections for, things that were going to happen, and it was just always part of life. And I just went down a normal career path. I went to college. I studied English. I'm a writer. I love to write just fiction and poetry. I just write for fun. And so there was really not, at that time, any desire to practice as a medium. If you had told me that I would do this as a profession, I would have laughed at you. I would have never believed that, because I took a very traditional route out of college. I started working for a lawyer, a criminal lawyer, and I was always psychic, but I really only used my psychic intuition to help me in my life. And that's one of the things that I'm really passionate in my practice, is just teaching people how to unlock these things, because it has been in my personal life my most valuable asset. I was very successful in my career because I just always had that sixth sense of what I should do or what I should avoid, and people that were good for me or bad for me. So I went on, and I was in criminal law in the courtroom for probably about 12 years. And I was in an accident. And I've heard a lot of other psychics say that if they ever come close to their own mortality, they experience a dramatic increase in their ability. And that happened for me. It was like it was just turned all the way up after that accident. And I like to say I had a come to Jesus moment where I realized that, you know, I could have died. I was on the back of a motorcycle with he's my husband now, but he was my new boyfriend at the time. And we got into an accident, and I was thrown into the street, and I didn't have a scratch on me. It could have been really, really bad, but I didn't have a single scratch, and nothing happened. And it changed everything for me because I started going to work. I was more tuned into my spirituality, tuned into the universe at large, and there was a victim. I worked in criminal law, and there was a victim of a client who kept approaching me at my desk at work. And this is really the first spirit that I can recall that was a complete stranger and wanted something from me, and just hounded me every day. And so I realized that the two worlds had collided, and that, you know, compartmentalizing my abilities just for my own personal use in my career was over, and there were actual spirits making requests for my services, and in that situation there wasn't anything that I could do, but again, I tuned in a lot more. My grandmother, who I mentioned has passed. She started to come to me every day during this time after the accident and said, you know, I think you need to do readings. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I'm trying to recover from this accident. And she really helped me see, and my guides really helped me to see that the accident was this catalyst. I wasn't hurt, but I was forever completely changed. And so I'd say it was probably 2 months after the accident, I ordered my business cards, and I flicked the switch on my little website. It wasn't much at the time. It was like my name, and because I didn't know what to say. I'd never practiced as a medium. I'd always kind of told my friends things, and they freaked out and wondered, how do you know that? But that's the part I always kind of kept to myself. I never gave away my secret as to how do I know that. But yeah, I had this coming out of the closet thing where I basically had to first convince myself and everybody that I knew that I walked out of a law firm. I was paid more money than I'd ever been paid before. I'm not going back. And now I'm a psychic medium. It was crazy. I still can't believe I did that. But here we are.
Oh, sounds you're very enthusiastic about that, and you're probably very happy in the position that you are. And I wonder a bit more about. I have read about on your website that you're doing different practice. You're working on the house, and I would like to know a bit more about that.
Yes, I work. Now say that again. I didn't understand that.
On the house.
Oh, house. Yes.
This is my I don't pronounce the H. I just keep that.
It's so beautiful. I could get lost in your accent.
Oh, cheers.
Yes, that's actually one of my favorite things to do. I just finished a huge commercial business. I'll tell you about the business in a minute, but I feel like I got tossed in right away, because the first house blessing, some people call them a blessing, some people call them an extraction. I kind of go with whatever my client's preference is. This lady was a Catholic lady, and that poor lady had big problems in her house, and it was nothing I'd heard about these things, and when I go into the house and I encounter this big ugly thing I'm not too happy about, it was just trial by fire. I had, some mentors and some people who told me, and my mother had told me some things, but it was really the first time that I had ever confronted anything that wasn't of the light. I like to stay in the light. But I found that this particular work of helping people get things out of their house, I'm particularly talented at it. I don't know why. I think it's maybe just because I'm a bossy person. I have a big bossy American personality. Like, you're not going to mess with these people. Get out. I think maybe that's why. And I actually had a mentor. I said, why do I feel like I get the really hairy, ugly cases? Why are the other mediums in Denver getting these ugly cases? Because I feel like they're all coming to me. And she told me that there are certain people who, like me, are good at that work because we can, you know. And I thought about what she said. I said, why me? And she said, because you can do it. You have the ability. And I didn't necessarily want the ability, but it's gotten a lot easier, because those are the clients I really like to help, because they are taking matters into their own hands. They're saying, no, this is my house. I'm not going to get bullied or pushed around in my house, and I want help. And they really will go to great lengths to figure things out. And I find that a lot of the times people have this problem in their house. It's kind of like a spiritual call, you know, and they're always different when I leave. And they're always, you know, I get calls from people who consider themselves to be very scientific and very, you know, reason-based, and they've never considered the existence of spirit activity ever. And they say, I'm so grateful. I'm completely out of my element, but you gave me practical things to do, and they seem to have worked. And I seem to be able to help almost anybody with a spiritual problem. And I think it's just because I go about it in such a practical, no nonsense, you know, let's get this done kind of way. And I've really become well known for that type of work, to the point where I had a business call me. It's a huge warehouse. It's like a 30,000 square foot old, for us, it's an old building. But it has dozens and dozens of spirits in it. It's a business that is closing down. And so they had me come in. They had a group of employees who, over the course of 25 years, have seen all kinds of full-bodied apparitions. They've heard growls. They've had things thrown. And before they leave, you know, shut the doors on this chapter of their life, they called me in to go through this huge, massive building. We did a full-on investigation. We videotaped it. We had a lot of validations. We got them a lot of answers. And I really feel like those people would have never been able to kind of close the door on this chapter of their lives if we hadn't kind of gone through to see what was there, because some of the people were really rattled. You know, it's just a group of employees. You know, you don't ever go to your job at the grocery store and think that there's going to be a ghost pop up and terrorize you at work. So that was one of the more interesting ones. And it's just like I said, it's an area of practice that I really, really love.
That's nice. I wonder, what are you finding? You mentioned ghosts. So could you tell us a bit more about what you think about those spirits, or what you're finding there?
Sure. Yes, it's different, obviously, in every location. But I find a lot of human spirits who don't necessarily know that they have crossed over, they've passed away, and they kind of need that little push to get to their next dimension. I kind of feel like their next move it's different for everybody. For me, I have a certain belief, and I think I can kind of go where I want to go after I pass on and do what I want to do. And that's kind of how I treat my clients on the other side. When I find a spirit in a house that's a human being, I just encourage that person to try to find their family members who have passed on, or go toward the light, go towards the good energy, the love and the happiness. And you know, there are times when I go into a location and I find things that are a bit darker, and I don't refer to those as human things. But we always use I use a lot of love and prayer and light, and I break up that darkness. I break up that dark energy, and we call in spirit guides and angels and loved ones. I really try to work with, like I said, if my client is of a particular faith or of a particular religion, I really encourage them to use everything that they've ever learned in their faith. You know, it might be completely different from mine, but I've never had a problem coming together with people who are, like I said, that, you know, either they're religious or they consider themselves atheist. It's never been a problem to make that connection, and I never could have anticipated that. I thought talking about God and ghosts and angels and demons would be a lot more difficult conversation, but it seems that we're always blessed with that light, that energy that helps us get our work done, and those things have never really been, those differences have never been a problem. So we find all kinds of things, and then if they're human, we respond to them, we get them onto the next phase of existence. And sometimes it's just the energy of the human beings that live in a house. I know that I've gone through periods of time where I probably didn't deposit very good energy into my house. You know, some four-letter words have flown about, and I also find, you know, sometimes it's not spirits at all. It's just this kind of leftover residue from our day-to-day. And so when I find people that don't need ghosts kicked out, they just need to kind of elevate their energy. I'll teach them a lot about just how energy works. And so it's kind of all different things. We find something different in every location. We find animals sometimes. That's really interesting. Cats, dogs. Sometimes I'll do a reading for a person, you know, they'll come here to the office, the house, and that want to communicate with my clients are animals. So we find everything.
Okay, nice. That seems to be quite complete, like view of that. I wonder, what is the law enforcement case that you're doing?
Well, I've had quite a few law enforcement cases. Actually, my first ever reading that I did was the family of a murder victim. The police were fairly certain that the person had been murdered. They were fairly certain that the killer had killed other people. And the family was that their loved one was murdered. And the case had gone on for about 18 months before the family called me in. And it was a kind of a Hail Mary pass. It was a last effort. And the family actually went to the lead detective and said, hey, we know you're going to think this is crazy, but we want to try a psychic. And it was, this detective had given a lot to the case. He was so obsessed with this case that I heard that he lost his marriage over it. So he was absolutely desperate to try anything too. And he said, fine, you know, you guys talk with her, and if she gets anything, you know, let me know, and we'll go from there. I had them over. I did a full reading for them. I was able to describe everything that the victim was wearing. I was able to describe the geographical area where he was last seen. I was able to describe the person who did it and how she covered it up. And the family was stunned, and I was too, because mind you, this is my very first reading. There was no, you know, psychics medium school for me. It was literally just getting thrown right into the frying pan, which I'm grateful for that now. But the family went to the detective, and he was shocked at what I had received. And he called me personally, and then I led him to some phone records. And the murderer had said that she was in one place, but her phone records proved that she was actually in a different place. And it was something that they should have seen and knew about. They weren't new phone records, but because of my description of the timeline, they were able to completely reframe. I'm getting chills right now, actually. The young man whose name, I just want to mention him because he likes to pop in. His name is Carter, and he was the victim, but he pops in to see me every so often, and he's actually kind of distracting me right now. But he actually was key in leading me to all the information. I've come to know this kid really, really well. And it's kind of funny because they were able to charge her finally with first-degree murder. They were not, and she's been, I think she'd take a plea deal. So she didn't go to trial. She accepted a deal and said, I plead guilty to this death. But the big thing about her was she was kind of like a black widow of really younger men. And she was a nurse, and she was feeding them drugs. And she overdosed at least 4 people. But the police were only able to prosecute her for this one case. And they called me and said that if it weren't for, the work that we had done, and it wasn't just me, the family was, they worked so hard to kind of help piece together the things that I found. And the detective was so open. I don't know many other detectives who would throw everything on the line like that and then say, we're trying a psychic. We're trying a psychic. That's kind of unheard of. We're still a little bit conservative where I live, especially where this murder happened. It's a very conservative place, and asking the cops to is just not done. So everybody had a big stake in it, and they called and said that they were able to finally put her in prison. And that was just the first one.
Wow.
That's where it all began.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was the young man, Carter, he did all the work. I'm just the messenger.
Well, it seems that you have a pretty good ear.
Yeah, I learned to trust what I hear. And the reason that was so powerful for me is I spent 30 years not trusting myself entirely. And that's kind of one of the things that I learned is when I wasn't trusting my intuition, I wasn't trusting myself. And that wasn't okay. You really have to stay connected, and you have to be able to, if you can't trust yourself, who can you trust? So that was a big turning point in my career. And I still do it. I can remember one reading where I get so worked up sometimes. I'm like, I can't say this. How can I say this? I don't want to say this. And I had a lady actually who they hired me to do a party, because sometimes I'll do, party tricks, just for fun. And so a lady sits down and she's very closed. And I said, I hear her loved one saying, ask her about her horse. Ask her if her horse, like, hey, is your horse moving? And she screams, oh my God! She bursts into tears, and she says that that's the problem. My husband has been transferred to France for work, and she doesn't know if she can afford the money. It's like a lot of money in a vet process. It's very hard to ship animals to France, and it was going to cost all kinds of money. And so I years ago, I would have never been comfortable asking this person if her horse is moving. But I learned very quickly that to do this work, I have to every single time be willing to throw caution to the wind and just say whatever they're asking me to say. And I find when I do that and I get out of the way is when I give a really, really, really good reading. So that's kind of what we've learned over the years.
Wow. You mentioned earlier that you training or you helping people to remove or to work on their major block about mediumship. And I would know a bit if you can share some advice about that.
Yes, actually, I feel like every single client that's ever come to me for a personal reading was sent to me by somebody else, either a loved one or their spirit guides or even just their own intuition. They said, you know what, I need more. So I feel like my clients come to me about 50% of the way, and are they're serious. They want to hear answers. They want to hear, my loved one's there. But there's a lot of times where there are issues that are keeping them from being happy, keeping them from moving on. There's been times where, we've talked about some very deep stuff, sexual abuse issues, family, alcoholism, all kinds of things. And I think in a lot of those situations, the resolution comes from, I had one who was, the person who passed away was a very serious alcoholic, had caused, lots of typical alcoholic type problems for the family. And the daughter comes for a reading and they talk about the alcoholism, and there are apologies made, and there's this I call it a wave. It's like when the wave hits the shore and all of that just kind of comes out, and we're able to take a deep breath, and I'm really giving my clients answers to things that they would never get worked out unless they were willing to put themselves in that chair. Because I pride myself on being a person who will absolutely never lie to you in a reading. If it's good or bad, I'm going to tell you what I get. And sometimes I feel sorry for my clients because they're going in deep. We're talking layers of an onion. It's the little pearly layer, and we're going all the way in. We're cutting that onion right open. And I really don't. I try to make it clear on my website that I don't do fortune telling. I can tell you that if you get over your fear of or Z, this area will open up for you. I can give you specific details about jobs I think you should do, jobs I think you should not do, people that you should or should not be around. I can kind of assess the energy of the people that are around my clients, their intentions. I get a real good snapshot of the people and things that is going on in a client's, day to day. And I can really just get into those layers and help them kind of get unstuck. And those are my favorite readings. I don't like the readings. I'm going to be honest with our audience. I don't like the readings when they're like, am I going to win the lottery? Am I going to get a new car? There's probably some really good, people who like to do those readings. But for me, I really want you to leave feeling like you know what to do about your life. When I first started practicing, I noticed that there was a lot of little baby ducks. I call them baby ducks. If you give them a really good reading and you give a lot of answers, they would keep coming back to me and, hey, I just have a question. And they'd become really reliant on the answers. And I realized that I kind of had to change I'm a mother, I have 3 boys, so I'm gonna take this, pat you on the back, give you a hug, kick you in the butt and send you on your way. And people really start to kind of attach. And I'm like, no, you have to do it on your own. You got to go that way. And so my style kind of changed, and I'm a little more no nonsense. I'm like the Jillian Michaels of psychics. It's like boot camp when you come to see me. We're going in.
So how is it with your kids? Does they also have a gift?
Yes. The 2 youngest, sensitive, and my oldest son is the one who actually experiences ghosts. The younger ones are sensitive in different ways, but my oldest is the one who he'll know it right away if there's something in the house. And we lived in a house that was pretty freaky sometimes. I had all kinds of things coming in and out. We had an old convent down the street. So I'd have this beautiful young nun who would walk in and just peek around in the kitchen. And I liked her. I loved when she would show up. But then there was other things that, we were never too sure what they were. And he and I had some really crazy nights in that house. And I, watching him work through these issues in this haunted house, let me know just how psychic he really is. But they're young, they're 17 years old, 8 years old, and 9-year-olds. So they're all boy. They're not into meditation, they're not into all of this. So it's kind of this thing where we'll be sitting there eating popcorn and they'll be like, there's a ghost over there, make him go away. It's almost like it's my house that I grew up in, where activity is normal. We don't have too much in this house. If I have something that goes on in this house, it's probably because it followed me from another house or a reading or something. But they're all used to it. We don't really hide it. I can't really hide it. I use social media a lot to educate people. I do YouTube and I have Twitter, and we don't really hide it. Come over for dinner or you don't. We're not too worried about it. And I, like I said, I spent so many years not knowing what to do with it, and not really fully comfortable with the spirits, that nowadays I just fly my flag. I let it all hang out, and I'm not going to hide it anymore. We don't have any reason to hide things.
That's a good advice, I can hear that. I wonder about, you mentioned also transformational mediumship, and I would like to know if you can talk a bit about that.
Yeah, transformational mediumship is definitely my term for kind of what we just discussed, where you come in with an issue and it's meant to completely transform your outlook, your life, your actions, your patterns or your habits. It's really my way of kind of giving the fair warning. Not here for lottery Powerball numbers. We're here to if I were a psychiatrist, sometimes I feel like a psychiatrist. Sometimes I feel like I should probably go get that kind of a license, because we're dealing with things that are either holding people back from living a great life in a lot of cases. So I want you to be transformed in some way when we're done. And I'm not one of those mediums. I really don't like doing multiple readings for the same person. I really try to tell people that it's going to take a few hours. On my website, I advertise that there's no set time for readings. We do at least 1 hour, but it's going to take a while. And when we're done, that reading, I feel, should last you a few years. We're going in deep, and as long as people are doing their homework and really kind of getting the message that their loved one or their spirit guide is sending, I don't feel the need for it. I'm definitely not a hotline. There's no hotlines.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good direction to take, to bring people to autonomy.
It really has to happen that way, or I don't feel like it's a successful reading. And it drives me crazy. And my husband tells me not to worry about it, because they say here, you lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I used to take it on. I used to take it on so much when my client ready for whatever next step. But I really learned that's none of my business. What you do with the reading after, and I was caretaking them after, and I'm like, you need to do that, and that's not my job. So that was the trials and tribulations of a brand new medium out on her own. I was sure that I could fix everybody. I still want to fix everybody. That hasn't changed. But we had to get real. We had to get realistic, and it's really working. It's working a lot better than, because I was getting really drained. That's the other tip I have for other people. If you're just starting out in this, and you're just kind of getting your bearings as a medium, you have to really protect yourself from getting drained, whether it's having clients attached to you or having, you know, spirits in, you know, Walmart attached to you. You have to be, for me, that was the number one flaw or hole in the system, was not being able to block it out. And for the first few years of working as a medium, I was overrun. I was working way too hard because I felt like I was older. I needed to catch up. But I'm always competing with myself. I think I'm only competing with myself. And maybe Kim Russo, because she's my mentor. I like her. But, you know, I really realized that I had to, you know, shut the door on it. When I'm done at work, I'm done. And in my personal life, there's always someone, you know, I get invited to a lot of parties, and I don't think it's because I'm popular. I think it's because I'm psychic.
Oh, don't say that.
And they'll give me some wine, and they're like, so have you seen my mom? And my husband would get so mad because we'd go to social events and I'd find some corner and I'd get a client and I'd like, oh, we'd read people for 2 or 3 hours at a party, and I wouldn't see him all night. And, oh, I was so bad in the beginning. I'm a Gemini, and I'm very extreme. It's like, it's black or white, all or nothing. There's no middle of the road for me. So now in my practice, I'm finding that middle of the road, and I'm a lot happier. And I think that I used to get really bad anxiety before reading, and a lot of that has died down. If someone's just starting out as a medium, I'd say it took me probably 2 or 3 years to really feel like I knew what I was doing, you know, and I could go in, give a good reading, and not have spirits following me, or be overwhelmed or drained or sad, taking on the emotions of clients. That was another thing that like I said, I want to fix everybody. I want to fix it all. I'd save the world all by myself if I had the time. But I finally realized that I just have to do my best in my little corner, and with the clients that I'm given. I do what I can do.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar to me, all of that. So thank you for being honest. And I wonder, you know, I think you have a book at the moment.
Yes. I have a book. It's called Everything You Ever Wanted to Ask a Real Psychic Medium. It's a very long title. I have a new one coming out too, but this book is because I got the same questions in my email every single day. So I just kind of laid them all out in a book. And there's a YouTube video that goes along with it. So if you have the Kindle version, you can just click right on that video and it comes up, and it's a whole little package of information for anybody who's interested.
Nice. We will put the link below the video.
Thank you.
We have a question. We have one person.
Okay.
So if you're happy, we can take a short reading or whatever comes to you about the person. So This is Francois. I want to go into therapy. Could you give me an advice about it?
Okay. I have a feeling that a male therapist is extremely important. And I'm not sure if they're saying pick a male therapist or do not pick a male therapist. You, Francois, might know a little bit better about that. But for some reason, the gender of the therapist seems to be important. I think that it is a good idea, but I'm also getting something about work. I'm wondering if there's like a heavy workload, or if your work is extremely demanding. I keep getting something about timing. Like, make sure that when you dig into this, you are prepared for, you know, maybe some bad days. maybe, you know, you're not necessarily going to feel great all the time going into this. So I think the number one thing for you is to make sure that you, I don't know if you can take a week's vacation on after your first session, but I would say that you're going to need some serious time aside just to deal with all the things that are coming up. And I feel very strongly that the gender of the therapist is important.
Thank you.
And you may know about why.
Thank you. I hope it's going to be useful.
Hope so.
So, oh, hang on. I've got, oh, he said, oh, it's not I want to go in therapy. He's like, I want to be a therapist. Okay. So, it's, no, sorry. So, yeah, he wants to be a therapist.
He wants to be a therapist.
It's probably therapy also.
Does he, do you, Francois, do you have a very demanding job right now? Because I see something about being really overwhelmed with work. Are you overwhelmed with work right now?
Okay, hang on. We'll wait for his typing. Oh, he says he's unemployed.
He's unemployed.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that the therapy thing, has he started the education for it? Have you started the education for it?
Yes, he said he did, yeah.
He says he could. So I think it's a good path. I feel like, I just feel like a sense of being overwhelmed. So I'm not sure if you have to work also as you're doing this school. I know a lot of people have to work and go along with it, but I just feel a little bit of a sense of being overwhelmed. So maybe it's this type of thing where you're going from being unemployed to this new thing, or maybe you're going to have to add a job to it. But I'm feeling like there's the potential for a lot of additional stress with it. So I hope that helps. I'm not sure if that describes your situation at all, but I do think that you have to be very, very careful about adding too much onto your plate. And I honestly think that the school or the process might take a little bit longer than you hope, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that it might take maybe another extra year, but I wouldn't want you to get discouraged because you're moving right along just as you should be. But don't be impatient if you have to get a job and slow things down, because I'm really concerned about, like I said, getting overwhelmed with too much. So if it means that you have to slow the pace down just a little bit, don't feel bad. Don't beat yourself up. And I think it comes from having to also work. I feel like money is going to be one of those typical student issues, and don't let any of these things get in your way, because I think you're definitely on the right path.
He said, all right, great, that makes sense.
Good. I hope it helps.
Excellent. Well, I wonder if there's a subject that you would like to discuss before we finish, or we haven't talked and you would be happy to discuss.
Sure. Let's see. I think that one of the things that people ask me, and I would love to know what the audience thinks. I think the number one thing that people ask me is what happens to people when they die. Obviously, that's the number one question that we get, because, and that's where my book actually starts. You kind of have to decide, yes, spirits move on. No, they don't. And I think that it is very interesting to see how all of the different people wrestle with it. So I would be interested to know if our audience, just maybe they can type real quick and say, yes, I believe, and I've always believed there were spirits, or no, I don't believe, and it has taken me some time. I would be curious to take a poll and really thinking, because that's where it all begins with these readings. You know, what do you think?
People are saying, yes, I believe.
Yes, I believe. I think we see that more and more. And the other thing that I'm noticing in my work too is that for the younger generation, that's one of the reasons I love social media, is because a lot of I never charge teenagers. So I'm not out there, you know, charging teenagers for readings. But on Twitter a lot, I'll have, you know, young people ask me questions, and I absolutely love interacting with them because I'm finding that there's a lot more psychics, and also that kids are just accepting the existence of spirit. And it's amazing to me that, you know, I was born in 1980, so I felt like I kind of had to hide. But I'm just hearing from so many kids that are like, yes, ghosts are everywhere. I see them, and there's just no question. And I think that's an amazing thing for us at this time. I think that's kind of why we're moving towards a lighter, you know, all the light workers are popping up, you know, and showing their faces and saying, hey, we're here, we're working on it, you know. And you see these things, like obviously we're extremely upset about Orlando, and, you know, our hearts are with those victims. And there's, you know, people like Donald Trump walking around saying horrible things. I like to believe that is this is our last stand before things get better. Because I'm getting chills right now. I feel like the reason that you and I are here today and our audience is here today is because this is the way things are going now. And so it's hard work. Get together. There's no cliques in the psychic world. We're gotta all get along, people. Nobody invented ghosts. They were already there. But that's really encouraging to hear people say that, especially to hear kids say that, because I think that that's the way we're moving. You know, and I think we're moving toward taking better care of the earth so we have it, and, you know, being nicer to each other, and hopefully our religious faiths will get along better in the future. But I truly believe that that's where we're headed. I hope so. I'm going to do my part. I know you guys are all going to do your part.
I'm going to do my part. I'm like you. I feel like
Corinne's doing her part.
Yeah, I'm going for the best also. I don't know where the other go, but I'm going for the best.
Amen to that. Cheers.
Amen. Well, you know, it was, I'm very, yes?
Well, and look at us. I'm in Denver and you're in London, right?
Yes.
We're connecting across the world right now, and the light is just growing. I mean, what a better day it couldn't be better.
Yes. Well, I'm glad to have meet you, you know. I find you very playful, which is a very like energy for me.
Thank you. I enjoyed talking with you and listening to your lovely accent. And I like Francois. Thank you for your question, Francois. I love just saying Francois. I'm trying to learn French, and it sounds like terrible. I won't embarrass you. I won't insult you with my horrible French.
Well, you know, it's like there's a lot of people trying, you know. I'm always impressed by trying, at least.
I'm working on it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Yes.
And hope maybe to see you soon for like an interview about some subject that you would be happy to present. And thank you. I hope you have a good day, because I'm going to bed soon.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone for looking at us, for listening at least. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.